you've signed up for the computer science breakout room. The way this is going to work, since it's sort of getting late, we have 20 minutes more or less. And what we're going to do is just kind of introduce ourselves, give you a sense of who we are, both as moderators and as students. And as we're doing that, feel free to just send questions you have for prospective computer science students to the chat, and we'll take it from there. Basically ask your questions, ask some of our own questions, so on and so forth. So as my name indicates, I'm Nathan. I'm a counselor here at Hale. I am an alumnus of Brown University, where I studied history and Middle East studies, very far from computer science, as Vedant knows very well. And yeah, that's me. Akshita, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Akshita, and I'm a new educational consultant here. And I am an alumna of Emory University, where I studied international relations and music. So yeah, I was very interested to hear about your piano involvement, Sarah. I hope we can explore that a little bit if we get time. But yeah, again, very removed from the computer science world. So, but we're lucky that we have two veterans here. And yeah, guys, feel free to throw your questions on the chat, and we'll cycle through them as organized, as systematically as we can.
Yeah. Vedant, do you want to go ahead and briefly reintroduce yourself? And then Sarah, just after Vedant introduces himself, you can go ahead and do so as well.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Vedant, and I hope to study and explore computer science and physics at Stanford University this autumn.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm going to study computer science at Berkeley this fall.
So one question I have to start us off with is, why choose the US as prospective computer science students, or just as prospective students in general? Either one of you can start.
I'd say I chose the US because, well, I applied to both the UK and the US, but Berkeley's right in Silicon Valley. So, that's usually where, innovation and technology is the most prominent. So I found that really exciting. And I like the location, and also I like the fact that you get to take different courses and make sure that what you want to study is computer science. And I think there are a lot of opportunities that are present over there if you look for them. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think we just got a question from Ali Kareem Lalani, who says that he just finished his GCSEs, his year 11. So what activities would you recommend for someone in that specific stage of their education?
So I think if you're in this room, you're probably interested in computer science, and the best way to learn computer science is to get your hands dirty. Just think of a project, brainstorm anything. It doesn't have to be very original. Just think of something and then start building it. It could be a website, could be an app, it could be you just exploring intellectual puzzles from coding challenges on HackerRank or Project Euler. And then I think Sarah probably agrees with me that if you don't know something, Google's your best answers. The forums like Stack Overflow and GitHub, if you ever get stuck, you literally just type up your error that pops up, or you type in your question in Google and you will find an answer. It's a very quick and dirty way of budging things together. And if you want for a more introductory structured course and introduction into computer science, there are always courses on Coursera and Code Academy. But yeah, if I highly recommend starting a project of your own choosing outside of school, because that's when you'll know whether or not computer science is for you and if you enjoy it or not.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And speaking of project, you were talking about your sustainable development competition, and I was wondering if they had you actually manifest a project, or was it just a conversation that was really being had?
I think it was a project in that it was a logistical challenge to conduct a huge speaking competition with among 150 people, all getting their own 10 minutes to speak with judges. I think it was a logistical challenge to organize it on Zoom, but yeah, it wasn't really very computer science heavy.
Okay, gotcha.
And so we have two sort of interrelated questions. I'll take one of them and then pose the other to our panelists. How important are math and physics for computer science? I would say they're pretty important if for example, you're in the A-level system. If your school offers computer science, great. But other than computer science, math and physics are great subjects to be taking. They're math heavy and they sort of help you develop the skills necessary for computer science. A good question that I think maybe our panelists could shed some light on is, what can you suggest for me to do if I cannot pursue computer science in school? So how do you kind of develop your competencies in computer science outside of the classroom?
Sorry, do I just answer?
Yeah, go for it.
I just did like internships and online courses. So for one of my internships, I had to build them an app, and it was using Dart and Flutter. So I hadn't heard of those languages before. So I used Coursera. I got to learn those really quickly. I only had like 4 days, and then I had to build them an app. So I think you can just go on Coursera and then find the language that you maybe want to start learning. And then, like Vedant said, you can just focus on making a project that you really like, and then just focus on that, which I got to do because I did IB. So for your as part of your IA, you get to do that. But if not, then you can just do it for fun.
I'd also like to clear a misconception that I usually get, wherein people ask me how many languages do you know as a measure of competency in computer science. Um, Learning a lot of languages is only useful if you are trying to do different things in computer science. But like for example, every language has its specialization. Python's very good at running math-heavy libraries such as NumPy for artificial intelligence or neural networks. You have JavaScript, which is good for making websites. You have Swift, which is good for making iOS apps. But you don't need to know all of them, and you don't need to just focus on learning a lot of languages at once to introduce yourself to computer science, because it's mainly just becoming good at a style of thinking, which your first language is always going to be the hardest to learn, and every incremental language that you pick up will become easier and easier as you get used to the way syntax is arranged, and because for the most part, if you're sticking to the same programming paradigm, you will have the same kind of thought processes. It's just like learning different languages is like learning different types of grammar.
Very cool.
So what were the languages that you decided to learn, and how did they relate to your projects, your goals?
Well, I started off with Python because that was what was offered at my school, and I think Python is a very approachable language to start with, because the words and the structure is very easy to read. It's very similar to English. Like, I'm pretty sure if I pull up a basic Python script on the screen, even those who in the audience who have no experience whatsoever will be able to read it and make sense of it like in English. So yeah, that's always a good place to start. And then there are languages like R, which I did. It's quite good for statistics. Swift was useful for making the app, which I made. And I'm sure Sarah has her own experiences with programming languages.
Sarah, how about you?
Oh, sorry. I think for me, Java was the main one because that's the one that I used to build my app. And it's the only one that I know like really, really well. I'd say the other ones, I just learned them for like my internship, and then I had to do an app for that. But you don't, like he said, like Vedant said, you don't really need to know many programming languages. It just depends what you want to do. My internship specifically wanted it in Dart and Flutter, so I had to learn that. But yeah, I mainly work in Java, and then just I try and come up with different ideas. And even if you do end up doing a website for fun, like you could actually turn it into something which would be really cool for your university applications as well. And then maybe just like start a project. And yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah. And try and maybe work with a company in Dubai. For example, for my computer science IA, there's an engineering company here that uses it. So you could do that.
And how did you guys go about like securing internships in the specific realm of computer science, like that might feed into your application in a positive way?
Well, I'll go ahead. All right, I'll speak then. Well, for me, mine was actually slightly bit of a fluke because my computer science teacher was approached by one of his friends who owned or had an interest in a bicycle company, and he didn't want to really pay for a professional company to develop an app, which he thought was quite simple in the requirements that it had. So he was willing to take a shot on a student who had no experience whatsoever. So I kind of oversold myself in the interview when he was asking me about what I knew. And then I had to frantically make up for it in the coming weeks where I had to deliver on my promises. If you're ever in such a situation, I would recommend that you start with the front end because that's what impresses someone who has no experience in computer science. You can develop the back end later and kind of show that you've done more than you have.
Yeah, well, I heard someone say that, it's when you're completely out of your comfort zone that you actually start learning. So I'm sure it was an amazing learning curve for you. What about you, Sarah? How did you go about securing good internships?
There was one company that I really wanted to work with, and it was Bait. So I tried like emailing them and they weren't responding. So one of my friend's dads actually knew someone there. So I asked for the personal email and emailed them because sometimes they don't respond and you won't get an internship there. And I sent out like 5 other emails and 3 responded. So I did an internship at all 3 of them. But yeah, you just have to send out like a lot of emails and to different places as well because you're not guaranteed a spot either way.
And I have heard that like the startup sphere in Dubai especially is really booming. So I know that they're looking for like pretty much all the help that they can get. I don't really know about like, the technicalities of like the data support that they need, but I'm sure that, most of their job sites have openings for people of like any level of expertise. So that's probably a good place to start even for students.
Yeah, and what Sarah mentioned about casting your net wide is really important. Just kind of draft up a email in boilerplate language, really generic language, send it out to as many people as you can. Many of them are not going to respond. Some might respond with a rejection. You might get 1 or 2 people who are vaguely interested in whatever you're proposing. And those are the ones you have to go with. If you have a connection, you can work. If you have wasta, use your wasta if you have it. But yeah, don't abandon your sense of shame when it comes to trying to create these opportunities for yourself, because you do have to kind of forge them, especially if you're a high school student and you don't have much in the way of experience.
Absolutely. All right, so Rishi Srivastava asks if most of your effort and time was directed towards learning concepts and theory or libraries and frameworks. Did you guys grasp the question, or should I ask him for a little bit?
I think, well, what I interpret from the question is that computer science has theory and practical, where theory you kind of learn about how, well, for programming specifically, what are the paradigms like? There's functional programming, there is object-oriented programming, there is procedural languages. So all this is stuff which I'm pretty sure if you ask a self-taught hacker, a self-taught programmer, they would have no clue about, but they would know about it, just not the terms, because they've kind of just got their hands dirty, and they would probably outprogram a student who's just learned theory. So I would say that theory is something that you will pick up if you do practical. If you just, as Sarah and I have been recommending, to just start with a project, because you will pick it up. It is easier to start programming if you know some of the theory behind it. It does open your eyes up to different styles of solving a problem, but I don't think theory is all that important. And about libraries and frameworks are just ways you can use other people's open source work and adopt it into your own language, or sorry, your own projects. And it's one of the best ways to start learning, but you don't really understand much of the underlying principles if you do something like that. For example, in artificial intelligence or deep neural networks, you can import an entire framework using scikit-learn or something and not have any clue about how it actually works. It would train on your data that you input it would do whatever you want. But if someone asks you to do a slightly different version of the problem that you're faced with, you wouldn't know how to do it. So I would recommend not just completely relying on importing libraries and frameworks into your project.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Right. And what specifically attracted you guys to your universities with regards to your programs? Was it like faculty members or specific classes that your universities offered, or programs that they have? Did you guys have anything in mind when you hit the application button? Or was it just a combination of factors?
For me, I think
I mean, these are Stanford and UC Berkeley, so they're just amazing in their own regard, but just in case.
I think they're probably some of the best places in the world to study computer science for a variety of reasons. Like Sarah mentioned, it's in the heart of Silicon Valley. They have a symbiotic relationship between them, where the universities benefit from the alumni networks, and Silicon Valley benefits from the university's resources and generations of computer scientists. And yeah, I guess we both want to be part of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's important to bear in mind that you are not attending university in a vacuum, and Vedant may take issue with the physics of that metaphor, but the point of it is that you are attending university in a community and in a place. And so if your university is in the middle of a cornfield and the nearest city is a 3-hour drive away, you're not going to have easy access to the kinds of opportunities you might have access to if you're going to school in Berkeley, in Palo Alto, where you're very close to Silicon Valley, the entire tech industry. And so something you'll want to consider as well is that you are picking a place to live for 4 years, and you want to bear in mind what exactly the implications of kind of the community around you will have on the opportunities you're able to pursue, the life you'll be able to live, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we have an interesting question. Will a non-computer science extracurricular achievement give an advantage for CS admission? So both Vedant and Sarah have non-CS related extracurriculars. So I think you could both shed a bit of light on that. Sarah, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So I wasn't always going to study computer science. It was going to be art and music for me in the beginning. So I had a lot for that during my period during GCSE, but I was always interested in some subjects. So I had like a bit of both. But I kind of just, Ariane, who was my college counselor, said that you could have, stuff that wasn't related just to your major. So I had music from since I was a kid, and I was doing grades. So that was really good for me to include on my resume. And then also for some of your unis, they let you upload like this, I think it's like a portfolio or something for like some of the other activities you've been doing, which is really cool. So if you've been doing like art like properly, then you could do that, or dance or something like that. So that's really cool.
It's amazing. Do you plan on keeping up your musical involvement through college?
Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. It's really cool. And yeah, for Sarah, I was wondering, like, how did you manage to juggle your academics with co-founding and leading two clubs, like the drone club and I believe there was the computer science club as well? Did it ever get too overwhelming, or was it very symbiotic? Did they feed into each other?
I mean, the clubs were honestly like really easy to manage just because the drone was something that we had to do anyway. So we just turned it into a club and like gave other people the opportunity to join and like tell them about it. And then the computer science one, I think I just mixed those two together. And then the computer science one was just the IB subject. So we got to help GCSE students and stuff. So something we were already familiar with. And then you can always make time, like they said in the main room, like you can, like piano, for example, like there was an hour, I always put an hour or two to practice a day, and art as well. And then drone and computer science were just, it was very simple. It was just an hour after school. So yeah.
Amazing. I think we have a question from Rishi Srivastava, who asks if learning bleeding edge, brand new and capable tools like Haskell or Svelte, sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation, offer any advantage, or should we stick to older, more reliable tools?
Well, Haskell is a functional programming language. I haven't personally used it, and I haven't heard of Svelte. And I think Haskell as a functional programming language probably has a very specific use for certain applications, especially if you're doing kind of more lower level programming. I think for your project, the best way to start, if you do make something, is to look up similar types of projects. For example, if you're making a clothing web store, you could search up how other clothing web stores are made. Or if you are thinking about making a navigation or location-based application, you could search up what kind of applications or platforms are used to make those. And it's just a matter of kind of adapting how other people have done it and customizing it to make what you specifically want. So I don't think there's a preference towards older or newer methods. It's mainly a matter of what fits better for your project.
Very cool. So I think I've been made to inform everyone on this call that we have about 2 minutes left. So if there are any other pressing questions, please type them onto the chat box and we can pose them to the panelists immediately. Okay, Miran asks how many hours you guys spend a day coding?
Oh, I personally have taken a bit of a break from programming, but I hope to get into it soon.
Yeah. Right.
We have one question that I think I can just take on quickly. Did you guys appear for an SAT subject test? The SAT subject tests are discontinued, which means that you don't have to take them. Discontinued in the US, not entirely discontinued internationally, but they will be soon. So focus on the SAT and the ACT. I think we might run out of time soon, so I'm hesitant to address.
I mean, our chat box has been pretty self-sufficient. They're answering each other's questions. We're good. All right, we have 11 seconds. Thank you so much, panelists. Vedant, Sarah, it was a pleasure interacting with you guys, and you were so informative.
And now we will just watch a quick 2-minute video outlining how Hail is able to help.
Let's face it, applying to American universities can be confusing, stressful, and overwhelming. Of course, Neil is no different. Neil is an academic all-star who just doesn't know where to start when researching, planning, and actualizing his educational journey to top US universities. He starts to ask himself, how do I stand out from the crowd of tens of thousands of similar applicants? Do SAT exams matter anymore? How do I create a realistic, balanced college list? How do I make my voice heard through dozens of essays? What about scholarships? How will my family afford to pay for this education? Neil spends hours scouring online forums for advice, which leave him more confused than when he started. He wants to see his school counselor, but she simply doesn't have the time or resources to give him the attention he needs to make his US university dreams come true. Yes, applying to American universities is tough, but Hale can help. Our expert counselors and test prep instructors walk the walk, not just talk the talk, and have graduated from top universities like Harvard, Penn, Brown, Columbia, and NYU. We will help you every step of the way, from course selection to summer planning, university research, scholarship searches, the applications themselves, and visa assistance. We mentor each student intensively, taking a one-on-one approach and ensuring that you get the greatest possible support and personalized guidance over dozens of sessions. With a team of 15 full-time counselors and test prep instructors located in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, we have helped students secure acceptances to all 8 Ivy League and over 170 other American universities, and over $45 million in scholarships over the last 5 years alone. Now, Neil has the support he needs to make his US university dream a reality. Rest easy, Neil. So what are you waiting for? Click here to schedule your free initial consultation today.
Thank you for sharing, Alyssa. And everyone, thank you for coming. So much of this process really is personal and depends on each student. So if you would like to know more about Hale might be able to help you in the process, really do contact us for a free initial consultation. And you know, if you're interested in test preparation, you heard from our students, it's, you know, test optional doesn't really mean optional. Our students worked really hard in the, you know, the test optional year, and the scores were really important in their success. And this summer we have a boot camp coming up for the August exam for the SAT, which is very exciting for us. It's a new offering to prepare for that the next SAT exam. And we would also like to thank our partners, Carfax, which is a leading UK education provider in the region. And if you're interested in learning about UK versus US, you can join us for a presentation on May 26th. And we would also like to thank our partner, LCR, which is an immigration company, if you're interested in learning about immigrating to the US as well. And now I would like to give the floor back to our CEO, Peter Davos, for some final words.
I think thank you so much, everybody, for participating. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to the attendees. I want to close the Ivy Insider discussion with the same question I ask every single year, which is to each of the students, very briefly, in 1 minute or less, if you can just share one piece of advice to the students who are sitting here, the younger students who aspire to be like you next year, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, if you could just share a piece of insight. So Amodini, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Peter. It's a great question. I'd say that my biggest piece of advice is, one, don't be afraid to communicate. Really reach out if you're having a tough time, if you need extra support, or if honestly during the process things are getting overwhelming and you need to take a step back. Often it's normal to sort of oscillate, but as long as you communicate why and what's going on, the people around you can really support you. And the other thing I would say is, don't be afraid to be vulnerable, to really ask yourself the questions you need to ask yourself, and to just go for it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Great advice. We wish you all the best at UC Berkeley. Emma, over to you.
I would say to really pursue things that you're really passionate about, not to be afraid of being yourself, and through the application to really explore who you are, because I really was able to explore more of myself and what I'm interested in, not only academically, but also personally through this whole process.
Incredible, incredible advice. Wonderful insight. Thank you. Vedant, you started quite early. We've seen you grow What advice do you have for the younger generation? I believe you came previously as an attendee to 2 Ivy Insiders, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I would say that there is a misconception that that we have touched upon, that people think there are some things you need to do to get into university. But if you do not enjoy a certain activity, like you don't enjoy MUN or you don't enjoy programming, don't do those activities, because the only way you can stand out or the only way you can find a career in something is if you actually enjoy it, and you'll just make your life miserable if you keep following activities purely to get into university.
Good. Do not reverse engineer the process. Be yourself. Follow your own North Star, right? Don't try to do what you think is expected of you. Manan?
Yeah, I mentioned in the breakout room as well, but just don't sacrifice your extracurricular passions and interests uh, for your academics. I mean, do focus on your academics, but also focus on a bunch of other things and do what you enjoy, as everyone else has said.
Very good. Follow your passions. And Tommaso, I think that's pretty true with you. You've been doing that consistently for some time.
Yeah, so similar to what they've said, stay true to yourself. Don't change yourself because you think that a university will want you to be a certain way. Just be yourself and you'll end up where you're meant to end up.
Okay. Beautiful. Marwan?
My biggest piece of advice would be to not close any doors because you can't, not reject any avenues because you can't see them leading somewhere. Don't opt out of a certain extracurricular because you can't see it having an impact on your application, because often it's the little things that you don't think would have an impact that have the biggest impact. So don't neglect anything.
Very good experience, insight, and experience sharing. Thank you. Mira?
I would definitely say timing is everything with this process, especially the application process. I started writing my essays probably early April, even March, and of my junior year, I believe. And it was something where that sort of timing and being able to look at everything that I was doing and handling and balancing all of my essays, I found that really I was able to write the most rewarding essays where I was really able to reflect within myself and all of the vulnerable things that I had mentioned. And it's only due to the fact that I gave myself the time to be able to pursue and revise and re-edit everything that I eventually did apply and submit to my colleges. So really giving yourself the time to reflect on everything and understanding what truly is important to you and what's something that you wish to share to those colleges. I think timing is everything within that process. And it's really going to make it much easier for you if you have a grip on how you're going to look at the process and pursue it when you're writing and submitting all that you have to share with your colleges.
Start early so you can manage the process effectively. The earlier you start, the less stressful it will be, for sure. Yusuf?
Oh, I think I did the opposite. I started too late, but my main advice is, yeah, definitely start early. You'll never have to cram in 8 hours one day to keep doing essays and brainstorming. If you start early, everything's laid out, and just work hard. It sometimes will feel very overwhelming, but you just have to push through. It's going to be, 6 months of hard work, and it'll all be rewarding towards the end.
Incredible. Very good. Well done. Well done. Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, so I'd say this is for the parents, but definitely don't force your kids to do things that they don't want to do because you think it'll look good on the application, because it's definitely going to have the opposite effect. I know my parents didn't, force me to do any activities, and I think that's why I had a pretty enjoyable high school experience. And I'm, going to college where I, want to be going to college. So yeah, definitely ask your kids to explore and stuff, but the activities you think will look good on the application won't look good on their application.
Especially if their heart's not in it, right? It's very transparent who's involved at a superficial level and who actually puts their heart and soul into their activities. So great advice. Sarah?
I think that nothing's ever like a waste of time. So just do whatever you enjoy doing. And if you find something you're passionate about, just explore. And if you're doing something and you're really passionate about it, you're going to do something amazing with it anyways. So again, like everyone's been saying, just make sure you actually enjoy what you're doing.
Amazing. Very good. And last but not least, Sonia, closing thought.
I would say try to stay confident, not overconfident, but confident, because the application process can be very challenging, and you might even after today end up comparing yourself to like all the accomplished people we have here. But as long as you're striving to be the best version of yourself, you have nothing to worry about, and you'll be where you need to be.
Amazing way to finish up the discussion. I can't thank you all enough. It has been a privilege to be part of your journeys, and all of our colleagues here at Hale. Of course, we loved getting to know you, and we loved helping you grow, and we loved helping you become better writers, and we loved helping you find a new home. So thank you for allowing us to be part of this journey. We wish you all the best. We'll still be here for you. So if you need anything, let us know. And again, thank you for taking your time and sharing your insight and experiences with parents and younger students alike as we demystify some of the misconceptions that exist out there. With that, I'd like to bring the 5th annual Ivy Insider to a close. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we hope to see you soon. But thank you, everybody, and good night. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.